What if I told you some of the boldest ideas in sci-fi were hiding in films most people barely remember today? Back in the 1960s, directors were experimenting with strange planets, eerie futures, and cosmic mysteries long before special effects caught up. Some were ambitious, some downright odd, but all carried a spark that still feels fresh. And as we dig through these forgotten reels, you might discover a few titles that deserve a new life. Number 20, The Silent Star, 1960. The Silent Star is one of those films that proves imagination can outshine anything else. Released at the start of the decade, this East German and Polish production dared to explore a mysterious signal discovered on a strange device found in the desert. Scientists from around the world join forces to decode it, and when they realize it might have come from Venus, the mission becomes more urgent. The crew boards a futuristic ship and sets off toward a planet no human has ever seen. The sets are huge, the lighting dramatic, and everything feels bigger than life. The film blends science, hope, and tension in a way that feels surprisingly modern for its time. What makes The Silent Star special is the teamwork between characters from different nations. Instead of being divided, they work together, creating a message of cooperation that still feels refreshing today. The visuals rely on bold use of color and smooth mechanical designs, giving the journey a dreamlike tone. It faded from mainstream attention because it was overshadowed by flashier Hollywood releases later in the decade. But this film deserves a comeback. It has heart, scale, and a sense of wonder about the universe that never gets old. Number 19, Spacemen, 1960. Spacemen, also known as Assignment Outer Space, is a small but impressive Italian sci-fi film that aims for realism rather than exaggeration. The story follows a reporter assigned to cover the daily operations of a futuristic space station. At first, the mission seems routine, but everything changes when a powerful satellite slips into a dangerous orbit and threatens Earth. The reporter suddenly becomes part of a tense rescue effort as the crew races to prevent disaster. The film stands out because it takes its subject seriously. The spacecraft interiors are designed with detail, the characters talk like real astronauts, and the pacing mimics the calm confidence of early space travel documentaries. There are no loud surprises or wild creatures. Instead, the danger comes from malfunctioning machines, failing systems, and the endless silence of space. For a film made in 1960, the miniature models and lighting effects are impressive, giving every scene a quiet beauty. Spacemen never became famous because it lacked a large marketing push, but it deserves a comeback because it shows space as a place of responsibility, discipline, and respect. It is a thoughtful film with a steady tone that makes you appreciate how fragile life becomes once you leave Earth. Number 18, Beyond the Time Barrier, 1960. Beyond the Time Barrier is a bold, eerie story that takes a simple idea and pushes it into something haunting. A test pilot flies a rocket plane at incredible speed and accidentally breaks through the barrier of time, landing in a future Earth shaped by radiation storms. What he finds is a world of silent corridors, strange customs, and people who speak with careful, measured voices. The society has sealed itself underground to survive, but even then, their problems are far from solved. The sets are clean, geometric, and atmospheric. The film uses long shadows and echoing rooms to create a sense of isolation. The pilot becomes a symbol of the old world, carrying memories of sunlight and open air. His presence forces the future society to confront possibilities they had long given up on. While the film is small in scale, it uses every moment to build tension and curiosity. It vanished from popular conversation because bigger sci-fi films arrived soon after, but it deserves a comeback because its vision of the future feels strangely timeless. It offers mystery, emotion, and atmosphere rather than spectacle. Beyond the Time Barrier is a forgotten film that rewards viewers who enjoy thoughtful science fiction. Number 17, The Cape Canaveral Monsters, 1960. The Cape Canaveral Monsters begins with an unusual twist. Instead of giant creatures or noisy invasions, the threat comes from two strange beings made of energy who take over the bodies of humans near a rocket launch center. Their mission is simple but alarming. They want to interfere with flights and test how much influence they can exert over Earth. The result is a quiet, creeping tension that builds through strange behavior and unexplained events. The film uses its small budget creatively. Dim lighting, slow-moving shadows, and the odd mannerisms of the controlled humans all create a sense of discomfort. You get the feeling that something is off long before the characters understand what is happening. The rocket launch setting gives the story a sense of urgency, capturing the early space race atmosphere when excitement and worry mixed together. This film was forgotten because it lacked big effects and arrived quietly, but it deserves a comeback because it delivers mood instead of noise. Its charm comes from the way it mixes early space-age curiosity with a subtle sense of danger. It is the kind of movie that makes you imagine what might be lurking just outside the frame. Number 16, The Earth Dies. Screaming, 1964. The Earth Dies. Screaming opens with one of the most gripping scenes of the decade. Streets suddenly empty, cars abandoned, and people frozen mid-step. Only a handful of survivors remain, wandering through a silent village as they try to understand what happened. Soon they discover tall, metallic figures, moving slowly through the area. These beings roam with an eerie calm, leaving viewers unsure of what they want or how they arrived. The film does not rush. It uses silence as a tool, letting the empty spaces speak for themselves. The survivors gather inside a hotel, tell, debating their next steps while fear slowly grows between them. Director Terrence Fisher guides the story with a steady hand, turning simple scenes into moments filled with tension. The film feels like a blend of science fiction and mystery, working through unease instead of flashy action. It slipped into obscurity because it was smaller than the big-name sci-fi productions of the decade. Yet today, its quiet approach feels refreshing. The Earth dies. Screaming deserves a comeback because it proves that fear does not need volume. Sometimes the scariest moments are the quiet ones, when the world stands still and you feel watched. Number 15. The Projected Man, 1966. The Projected Man tells the story of a scientist hoping to perfect a new teleportation technique. When his experiment fails, he ends up transformed, glowing with strange energy and losing control of his body. The film treats his transformation with sadness instead of shock. You see a driven man slowly losing the parts of himself he values most. The mood stays tense as he moves through the city, trying to understand what happened. The sets are packed with machinery, flickering lights, and control panels that make the laboratory scenes feel alive. The transformation sequences rely on simple effects, yet they remain effective because the story focuses on emotion instead of spectacle. The scientist becomes a symbol of ambition taken too far, showing how even good intentions can spiral out of control. This film faded from attention because it never had the resources of larger productions, but its ambition shines through. The Projected Man deserves a comeback because it blends science, tragedy, and atmosphere into a story that feels surprisingly thoughtful for its time. It is a reminder that small films can still aim high and leave viewers thinking long after the ending. Number 14. They Came from Beyond Space, 1967. They Came from Beyond Space begins with a meteor shower, landing in a neat formation on a quiet countryside field. The odd pattern is enough to attract a group of scientists eager to investigate. Soon, several of them begin acting differently, speaking with flat voices and showing no emotion. Something has taken control, and the changes spread slowly, raising suspicion among those who notice the strange behavior. The film builds tension through small details, a glance that lasts too long, a sudden silence, a feeling that someone is observing from just beyond the frame. As the mystery deepens, one scientist who remains unaffected begins piecing together the truth. The presence behind the meteor shower is intelligent, organized, and searching for something far beyond ordinary understanding. This film slipped out of mainstream memory because it was quieter than the big sci-fi adventures releasing at the time, but it deserves a comeback because of its slow, eerie tone. It is a story that gets under your skin without ever raising its voice. They Came from Beyond. Space offers a reminder that science fiction can be unsettling without being loud. Number 13. The Terranauts, 1967. The Terranauts tells the story of a small research team quietly listening for signals from deep space. One ordinary day, everything changes when the group is suddenly transported across the galaxy to a strange alien outpost. The message is clear: they have been chosen to participate in a cosmic test. Their decisions will determine whether Earth is seen as worthy of survival. The film uses bright colors, playful designs, and unusual props to create a world that feels both fun and unsettling. The scientists find themselves surrounded by unfamiliar machines, strange corridors, and puzzles they must solve under pressure. The tone shifts between light humor and real danger, giving the story a unique energy. It vanished from mainstream conversation because critics expected serious sci-fi and did not appreciate the mix of adventure and whimsy. But this blend is exactly what makes the movie charming now. The Terranauts deserves a comeback because it captures the excitement of not knowing what lies beyond our planet. It celebrates curiosity, courage, and the joy of discovery in a way that feels timeless. Number 12. Island of Terror, 1966. Island of Terror begins with mysterious disappearances on a quiet remote island. When two doctors arrive to investigate, they uncover a scientific experiment that has gone terribly wrong. The island is now home to strange, boneless creatures created by accident. These creatures move silently, leaving fear and confusion behind wherever they go. The film uses suspense instead of noise. The empty homes, the quiet forests, and the whispering wind create an atmosphere that keeps viewers alert. You feel the isolation, the uncertainty, and the characters' growing fear. The creature designs are simple yet effective, relying on unusual shapes and slow movement to make them feel unpredictable. Island of Terror was forgotten because it did not have the loud action that audiences expected, but today, its patient style stands out. It deserves a comeback because it mixes science fiction with mystery in a way that feels clever and engaging. It is a story about unintended consequences and the effort to fix mistakes before they spread beyond control. Number 11. Night of the Big Heat, 1967. Night of the Big Heat takes viewers to a small island gripped by a strange heat wave. The temperatures rise far beyond anything normal, staying high even after sunset. Radios fail, tempers flare, and something unseen begins affecting the island's atmosphere. People try to stay calm, but the feeling that something is approaching becomes harder to ignore. The film thrives on atmosphere. The heat becomes a character of its own, pressing down on every conversation and turning simple tasks into stressful moments. As reports of lights in the sky increase, the characters begin to suspect an otherworldly presence. The story moves slowly, but with purpose, letting the tension build as the air grows hotter and the nights grow longer. It faded from public memory because it focused on mood rather than big effects. effects. Yet this is exactly what makes it fascinating today. Night of the Big Heat deserves a comeback because it shows how powerful a simple idea can be when handled with patience and care. It invites viewers to imagine what it feels like when danger moves closer a little more every day. Number 10. First Men in the Moon, 1964. First Men in the Moon feels like a forgotten time capsule of wonder. Based on the classic story by H.G. Wells, this British adventure takes viewers on a journey to the moon long before real astronauts planted a flag. Using a gravity-defying invention, a small group travels into space and lands on the lunar surface, only to discover an entire underground civilization waiting beneath the dust. The creatures, called Selenites, live in tunnels carved with delicate detail, making the moon feel alive and mysterious. Ray Harryhausen's stop-motion effects give the film its charm. His style creates a world where every movement feels handcrafted. Every creature feels like it has weight and personality. The sets mix fantasy with early space exploration, creating a version of the moon that feels dreamlike yet strangely believable. The story also shifts between humor, curiosity, and quiet tension, giving it a playful rhythm. It slipped out of mainstream conversation because science fiction films became louder and flashier in the years that followed. But First Men in the Moon deserves a comeback because it carries the spirit of true adventure. It reminds us of a time when the moon was a place of imagination, not data. It is charming, warm, and full of creativity. Number 9. Atlantis: The Lost Continent, 1961. Atlantis: The Lost Continent blends fantasy and sci-fi into a colorful tale about a legendary world on the brink of collapse. The story follows a fisherman who rescues a mysterious woman and discovers she is from Atlantis, a land filled with technology far beyond anything known at the time. Once inside the city, he finds a civilization full of towering machines, strange laboratories, and powerful energy devices being misused by those in control. What stands out most is the set design. The film combines ancient style with futuristic machines in a way that feels both odd and captivating. The machines glow, the chambers echo with strange sounds, and the atmosphere suggests a society racing forward without thinking about the cost. The film slowly builds toward its final moment as Atlantis faces the consequences of its unchecked progress. It has been forgotten because it came from a decade crowded with historical epics and grand adventures. But Atlantis: The Lost Continent deserves a comeback because it captures the imagination of exploring a lost world filled with ideas far ahead of their time. It is grand, dramatic, and visually striking, offering a world that feels both magical and technological. Number 8. The Lost Continent, 1968. The Lost Continent is one of those films that starts like an adventure story and then slowly pulls you into something stranger. It follows a group of passengers aboard a troubled ship who are forced into lifeboats during a fierce storm. Instead of reaching safety, they drift into a mysterious region covered by dense fog and a floating sea of plants, thick enough to trap anything that enters. Soon, they discover that this seaweed-like world hides dangers unlike anything on land. The film blends fantasy, sci-fi, and suspense with a sense of discovery. The plants feel alive. The fog hides creatures. Lost figures from history appear in surprising ways. The visuals are surreal, mixing bright colors and odd shapes to create a setting that feels like a dream gone slightly wrong. Every step the characters take seems uncertain, as if the landscape itself is watching them. It disappeared from memory because it did not fit neatly into one genre, but that is exactly what makes it interesting now. The Lost Continent deserves a comeback because it offers a world that looks and feels unique. It is strange, imaginative, and full of atmosphere, delivering a journey into a place where nothing behaves the way it should. Number 7. Gorath, 1962. Gorath is a Japanese sci-fi epic that asks a dramatic question. What would humanity do if a massive star-like object were heading directly toward Earth? The story follows scientists and governments racing against time as Gorath, a glowing, wandering body, drifts closer and closer. Instead of building shelters or escaping, the plan involves something far bolder. Earth itself must be moved slightly off its orbit to avoid destruction. What makes Gorath fascinating is its scale. You see massive engines being constructed at the South Pole, glowing with energy as they push the planet away from danger. You see people across the world cooperating, arguing, and preparing for the unthinkable. The effects, while modest by today's standards, still carry a sense of monumental effort. Gorath faded from mainstream attention because it was overshadowed by larger monster films of its decade. But this film brings something different, a human story on a global scale, a vision of unity rather than chaos. It deserves a comeback because it treats the entire planet as a character, showing both the fear and determination that come when everything is at stake. Gorath is bold, hopeful, and full of imagination. Number 6. The Creation of the Humanoids, 1962. The Creation of the Humanoids is one of the quietest yet most thought-provoking films of the decade. Set in a world recovering from a devastating event, humans rely on advanced robots called humanoids to rebuild society. These humanoids look almost human, speak softly, and follow strict rules designed to keep peace. But as they grow more advanced, some people fear they may be replacing humanity entirely. Most of the film unfolds through conversations rather than action, but those conversations are powerful. They explore identity, purpose, and what it truly means to be alive. The sets are simple but atmospheric, filled with long shadows and echoing glowing chambers that give everything a reflective, almost meditative tone. You gradually sense that the humanoids may think more deeply than anyone imagined. It was forgotten because it lacked explosions, spectacle, or large-scale adventure, but that is exactly why it holds up today. The creation of the humanoids deserves a comeback for being bold enough to focus on ideas rather than distractions. It is thoughtful, calm, and ahead of its time, offering a story that still feels relevant in a world full of advancing technology. Number 5, The Time Travelers, 1964. The Time Travelers takes the classic idea of a time machine and turns it into an unexpected journey. When a group of scientists accidentally steps through a portal into the future, they land in a world transformed by disaster. The Earth is scarred, humanity has split into survivors and strange underground beings, and the group quickly realizes the future is not the paradise they hoped to find. The film moves with steady pacing, showing the scientists exploring ruined cities, meeting cautious future humans, and learning about their attempts to rebuild civilization. The sets are inventive, filled with glowing screens, unusual machines, and experiments designed to keep the last traces of humanity alive. There is a constant sense of curiosity mixed with danger, as the travelers discover that returning home may be harder than expected. The Time Travelers faded from mainstream attention because bigger time travel films arrived later, but it deserves a comeback for its creative ideas and clever execution. Its ending delivers a twist that still surprises viewers and gives the story a thoughtful edge. This is a film that embraces imagination and invites you to think about the choices shaping the future. Number 4, The Shape of Things to Come, 1968. The Shape of Things to Come imagines a world struggling to recover from global unrest. It shows a future where society tries to rebuild, using technology and careful planning. Set in a world of gleaming towers and organized communities, the story follows leaders who debate how humanity can move forward without repeating past mistakes. Although loosely inspired by ideas from earlier decades, the film stands on its own with its bold visual style. The sets are filled with bright lights, smooth walls, and futuristic machines that reflect the optimism and uncertainty of rebuilding. Characters discuss the role of progress, responsibility, and unity as they try to guide civilization toward a safer path. The film does not rely on action, but instead focuses on ideas and choices that will shape tomorrow. It became overlooked because it was more thoughtful than flashy, but The Shape of Things to Come deserves a comeback for the very reason it was ignored. It reminds viewers that science fiction can be philosophical and forward-looking. The film captures the spirit of rebuilding, imagining a world where hope is just as powerful as technology. Number 3, The Day the Earth Caught Fire, 1961. The Day the Earth Caught Fire is a gripping mix of newsroom drama and looming global danger. When the sun's behavior changes after a series of large tests, the Earth begins drifting closer to unbearable heat. Reporters scramble to uncover the truth. Scientists warn of rising temperatures, and the world slowly realizes the scale of the crisis. The story unfolds through the perspective of journalists who race to gather facts amid growing tension. The film uses clever visuals to show a world warming beyond control. Skies look bright and hazy, the air seems heavy, and people begin reacting with fear as days grow hotter. The combination of factual tone and emotional storytelling makes the danger feel personal and immediate. It drifted into semi-forgotten status because later disaster films used much louder effects. But this one deserves a comeback because it shows how ordinary people respond when the world changes around them. Its focus on human reactions, small details, and rising urgency makes it feel timeless and surprisingly modern. It is a powerful, thought-provoking film that still carries weight. Number 2, Battle Beyond the Sun, 1962. Battle Beyond the Sun presents a futuristic race between two nations competing to reach Mars. The film follows two brave crews who face challenges, mechanical failures, and unexpected cosmic events as they navigate space. The designs are detailed, with spacecraft that look sharp and angular, glowing engines, and control rooms lined with instruments. The story builds tension through teamwork and determination. The crews push forward despite doubts, knowing that their success could inspire hope for peaceful cooperation. The film uses wide cosmic shots and imaginative planetary landscapes to capture the thrill of early science fiction. Dreams about interplanetary travel. Even with modest effects, it creates a sense of adventure that feels sincere. It became overshadowed by later space films, but it deserves a comeback because it captures the early excitement of exploring beyond Earth. Battle Beyond the Sun celebrates bravery, effort, and the wonder of stepping into the unknown. Number 1, The Time Machine, 1960. The Time Machine remains one of the most iconic sci-fi films of the decade, yet many younger viewers have never experienced it. Based on the classic story by H.G. Wells, it follows an inventor who builds a machine that allows him to travel far into the future. What he finds is a beautiful but unsettling world divided into two groups, the gentle Eloi on the surface and the shadowy Morlocks underground. The film's visuals are rich, with glowing time-lapse effects and stunning changes in landscape as centuries pass in seconds. The future world blends beauty with quiet fear, creating a sense that the past and future are connected more deeply than expected. The inventor's journey raises questions about progress, comfort, and responsibility. The Time Machine deserves a major comeback because it still feels meaningful and imaginative. It blends adventure, caution, and emotion into a story that stands strong more than half half a century later. And there you have it, 20 forgotten sci-fi gems from the 1960s that still spark imagination today. These films weren't just stories. They were experiments, ideas, and bold leaps from creators who dreamed bigger than their budgets. If even one of these titles made you curious enough to explore further, then the journey was worth it. Tell me which one surprised you the most. Drop your thoughts below, and make sure to subscribe for more hidden treasures from film history.